All right, we're live. Welcome to episode 23 of the Pro Go Baduk and Weiqi Podcast. Again, I am Xiao Dai, and we have
Gaza.
Gaza. And Gaza this week it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode because reasons. Shall we just get
My
into it?
bad. I got to get some sleep this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just get into it. We're only going to cover two topics. The first one is the Seo Bongsoo special 5 games. Gaza, do you want to tell us a little bit about Seo Bongsoo? Who is even this guy?
Yeah. So Seo Bongsoo is a bit of a legend in the Korean
Legend.
professional community, and rightly so. He's one of the most accomplished Korean professional players.
Yep.
Just to give a bit of background of some of his achievements, he's won over 1,700 professional games.
Wow.
That's the third most ever in Korea.
Yep.
Um, he's been around for a very, very long time. I believe he was the fourth ever Korean to become a nine dan.
Right.
I think he became nine dan in 1986,
Right.
and he's been he's accomplished things both on the domestic scene and also internationally. Most famously, he won the second In Cup
Yes.
in 1992.
Yeah.
One of the biggest international tournaments,
Yeah.
and he won it, the second ever one.
Yeah.
And remember, Cho Hun Hyun actually won the first one. So he kept it in Korea.
Yep.
Another huge achievement of his was in a team event. It wasn't the Nongshim Cup, but it was the predecessor
Right.
of the Nongshim Cup. I believe at the time it was called the SBS Cup,
Yep.
because that was the sponsor. And this, I think, was in 1996, and it had the same format as the Nongshim Cup. So Japan, China, and Korea had 5 players, and if you lost a game, you were eliminated, and whichever team remained,
Yep.
after 2 other teams were knocked out, they won.
Yep.
And so basically, you had to, every team had 5 players, so there had to be 10 players get knocked out before your team could win.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily that your team knocked out all of them, like they could, knock out each other, but
Yeah.
you could only win if the other 10 players were knocked out. And Seo Bongsoo, he knocked out 9 players on his own.
9 out of 10.
Yes, 9 out of 10. And the only reason he didn't go the whole 10 was because he was the second Korean to enter.
Yep.
And so one of the Japanese players had already been knocked out.
Right.
So he knocked out the entire Chinese team
Yep.
and 4 of the 5 Japanese players.
Yep.
And he won all 9 of his games. So some of the, and like this is in 1996. So, Japan, sorry, this was 1996 and 1997. So Japan was quite strong.
Yeah.
And China was also strong. I mean, some of the players he knocked out from Japan, Norimoto Yoda,
Yep.
Orisei,
Yeah.
Yamada Kimio,
Yeah.
Naoto Hikosaka.
Yeah.
And some of the Chinese players he knocked out, Yu Bin,
Yeah.
Chang Hao,
Yeah.
Ma Zhao Chun.
Yep.
Some absolute legends there, and he beat all of them.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just crazy.
basically single-handedly won a team event.
Yep.
And you hear about Fan Ting Yu winning 7 games in a row, and I think who was it? Dang Yifei also won 7 games in a row in Nongshim Cup. Well,
Right.
yeah, Seo Bongsoo once won 9 games in a row.
Yeah. This 9 games is unprecedented because it's 1 all within 1 season. Because I think we have players that have won 9 games in a row across seasons.
Yes, across multiple seasons, yes, but Seo Bongsoo did it in a single event.
Yeah.
The strange thing is, I don't think he ever played in the Nongshim Cup, so this was essentially his. He sort of finished. He retired from team events sort of undefeated.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely crazy. Some other achievements of his, um, the Myungin, one of the biggest titles in Korea.
Yeah.
He won that 7 times.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, most like he completely dominated that tournament in the 70s.
Yep.
Um, yeah, he also won the KBS Cup in 1983.
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, just absolute legend. He's
If
still going strong. He recently made the semi final of the World Senior Championships.
right. So one thing, if I'm not wrong, he's won the Munjin 5 years in a row, and I think in Korea he's often people when people call him, they would go Seo Munjin. So his Munjin is like almost like part of his title. It's just like calling Cho Han Hyun, Cho Guksu. It's just like an honorary
Yes,
thing that they
yes, he
do.
did actually. Yeah, he did win it five years in a row in the
Yeah.
'70s. Yes.
Now I'm not
Um,
sure. Just to add a bit of color to what to Seo Bongsoo. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but apparently when Cho Han Hyun first gone back to it came back from Japan to Korea to play, so Cho Han Hyun played in a tournament versus Seo Bongsoo, and after in that particular one, Seo Bongsoo won because I guess Cho Han Hyun wins the majority of them, but in that particular one, Seo Bongsoo won, and after he had won, Cho Han Hyun was thinking about going back to Japan. Now, apparently, this is when Seo Bongsoo said, "Oh, I don't like this guy." After he loses, he just want to run away. And after hearing that, Cho Han Hyun decided to stay. Now, that's probably just a made up story, but it's a good
it,
story.
it 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 may have some truth to it, but I think it's been embellished a little bit,
Yeah,
maybe.
probably. Now, there's just to add even more color to this. Now, in I believe for a 15-year period in Korean Baduk, the professional Baduk scene was dominated by Cho Han Hyun and Seo Bongsoo. But of course, Seo Bongsoo was basically losing maybe 70% of the games versus Cho Han Hyun. So Cho Han Hyun wins a lot, but there were a lot of cases where the final of the competition were Cho Han Hyun and Seo Bongsoo, and basically they have developed a habit where after playing the game they don't review the game together, and this is quite rare for pros because it's a polite thing to do, but they don't do it. Apparently they don't really have a good personal relationship. But I do remember reading Cho Han Hyun's autobiography. So in that autobiography, he does mention Seo Bongsoo. One of the things he said was uh, in the past, before Korean pros, came, were kind of made in an assembly line, go through the same training school, same kind of got taught the same style. Korean players were of all different styles, and he mentioned that Seo Bongsoo was of a particular style, of a very unique style that's unique to Seo Bongsoo. In fact, Seo Bongsoo was known as the weed, or as I like to call it, wild grass, just because of his style of play. And Seo Bongsoo himself said he doesn't know any joseki, but he's confident that he's not going to lose to anyone, if he tries. And apparently, when Seo Bongsoo was 19 years old, when he was 2 dan back then, and I believe he challenged, was it Kim In or Cho Nam Cho for the Myunjin title? I think one of the two. I can't remember which
I
one.
I think it was Cho Namchol.
Right. And back then he was 19. And I guess back then it was rare for a young player to break through like that, and also because it was 2 dan. But I think he won the Myunjin as a 2 dan, and this is what he used to do. He used to write in his notebooks that I must win, I must win, I must win, just to motivate himself. And he often, and the reason he wanted to win so much was because he was living in a very tiny apartment. If you have seen the movie Parasite, one of those underground apartments, maybe something like that. He really wanted to move to a bigger apartment, so he really needed the money. So he is really motivated to win, and he often leaves the house with just a few things in his pocket, and they were 2 bus tickets for the return trip, enough money for a cha-chan-men, so it's like a noodle, and a packet of cigarettes, and that's all he left the house with. And he would just go and play, and there's so many times where he just won a game from like impossible situations because he's meant to read some crazy sequence that's out of nowhere, have bad shape and everything. So he is a very, very colorful player. And I do believe that he's still there's another thing I wanted to mention just to add more color to him. Apparently he had played in a pair go competition, an official one, and I can't remember what it was, but he had beaten Takamiya Masaki, the Cosmic Go master. And after winning, Takamiya just said to Seo, okay, I really, was I want to play you again, at night, because I don't think I should have lost in the morning or something. And apparently Seo Bongsoo just said, is there a game fee? And then Takamiya just said, oh, I mean, we're just playing for fun. And Seo Bongsoo just flatly said, no, I don't want to play. So he really is really keen on just making cash, from playing. He's not interested in anything else, and for good reasons. Apparently he got divorced in his 50s, and now he's nearing 70, but I believe he remarried after he got divorced, and he's still earning money to support his family. So that's why he's very, very keen to play games and still participate in competitions.
Yeah,
so that's my color for the Seo Bongsoo. All right, Gaza.
Yeah,
I added my color. Yep.
So yes, yeah. So also just wanted to mention, yeah, he's still actually going strong. He actually won the Daeju Cup last year.
Right. At 68.
At 68. Yeah, he beat Yu Chang-hyuk, who is no pushover.
No.
So still winning titles, unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, okay, if you remember, Yuta got beat by Takao Shinji in the Kisei S League this year. And I do believe Seo Bongsoo beat Takao Shinji in a competition this year. Might have been some I can't remember what competition.
It may have been the senior world championships, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, imagine if Seo Bongsoo still plays in the S League. That's crazy.
Yeah, but anyway, because he's such a legend, he sometimes appears in special events on Baduk TV.
Right.
I believe last year he had an event where he was playing against a bunch of amateurs.
Right.
And essentially he would start by giving them a huge handicap.
Yeah.
And if the amateur beat him, he would reduce the handicap bit by bit until Seo Bongsoo actually, won.
Right.
And yeah, most of the time he didn't need to reduce the handicap that much.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, this time it's a different. It's sort of definitely a different variety. This time Seo Bongsoo is the one sort of taking the handicap because he's playing some of the best players in Korea.
Now, I guess, if Seo Bongsoo had won the even game, he would actually be the one giving handicap. I do believe that.
Oh, yes, that is true. So the way this worked was 5 of the top players in Korea are going to play Seo Bongsoo.
Yeah.
And the first game starts with an even handicap, and then the handicap would change depending on who won.
Right. Yeah.
So if Seo Bongsoo wins, the handicap goes against him by sort of 1 stone.
Yep.
And if Seo Bongsoo loses, then the handicap is in his favor by 1 stone.
Yeah.
And he plays each of these 5, super good players once.
Yep.
And they really did get the cream of the crop in terms of these 5 top pros. Like they literally got all of the best pros with the exception of Shin Jin-so, who I believe was asked, but he declined.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the pros that they got were Kim Ji-sok, Shin Min-jun, Kang Dong-yoon, Byun Sang-il, and Park Jun-hwan.
Yep.
So that's 80% of Korea's Nongshim Cup team this year.
Yeah.
And I believe it's also 4 of the top 5 Korean players.
Yeah.
Now, they essentially played in order of ranking.
Yeah.
From the lowest, like Korean ranking, from lowest rank to highest rank.
Yeah.
So the first game was Kim Ji-sok.
Yeah, which is the game you see on screen. Kim Ji-sok is black.
Yes. So yes, Kim Ji-sok was black in this one. So yeah, this ended up being the only game where Seo Bongsoo was white.
Yeah.
And this was an even game.
Yeah.
So 6.5 Komi. Yeah, and I believe I'm not. I'll try and quickly find out the what the time limits were.
I believe it might have been 30 minutes.
I think it was 30 minutes.
Yeah.
With your typical. You got Byoyomis as well. Yeah. I'll just quickly see if I can get that, but. Yeah, unsurprisingly, this one was not sort of a massive surprise here. Kim Ji-sok did win this game quite comfortably.
Yeah. Now, I do want to point out that in terms of time usage, I believe Kim Ji-sok was using up quite a bit of his time. I guess even when you're expected to win, you don't want to slip up because you might look bad.
Yeah, no, Seo Bongsoo, he definitely wasn't falling behind heavily in terms of time usage. As you say, I think he may have actually been faster than Kim Ji-sok for the majority of the game.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's, a trait of his, like if he's known for always playing fast, but yeah, he definitely was quite comfortable with the time limits.
Yep.
So it is 30. It is 30 minutes.
Yep.
And it's 5 1-minute Byoyomis.
Yep.
So, 30 minutes isn't for an exhibition game. That's fairly decent.
Yeah.
Fairly standard times there, and essentially, Seo Bongsoo just. I think one of his groups died, and his group on the right died, and Kim Ji-sok had a fairly comfortable victory there, but that wasn't really a surprise.
No, but by the way, I just want to mention that the prize money for winning a game is, I believe, 3 million won, and for losing you still get 1 million won. So that's the prize money. So as you can see, it's just Kim Ji-sok easily won this one.
Just for reference, 3 million won in Australian dollars. That's about 3,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
So.
And US dollars would be around 2,000, I believe, somewhere around there.
Yeah, probably somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And 1 million won would be around about 1,000 Australian dollars, so maybe about 800 or 700 US dollars.
Yep. So so I guess both sides are incentivized to win because it is a decent chunk of change.
Yes, but in any case, the next game was against Shinminjun, and because Seo Bongsoo lost, that this game was now played with Seo Bongsoo as black and no Komi.
Now, it is interesting to me because if it is no Komi, it raises the possibility of a draw. So I guess in the case of a draw, it just keeps the same handicap, I would assume.
Yeah, I'm not entirely. I wasn't entirely certain if the Komi was 0 or half a point for white because I don't, understand Korean.
Right.
But I do believe that the Komi was 0.
Yeah. I mean,
it says on Kifu Depot that it's 0.
Yeah.
But I often if there's handicap games, half the time the Komi will be 0 and half the time the Komi will be 1/2 in favor of white just to prevent a draw. In this case, I do believe that the Komi was 0. Yeah. And I think you're right. I'm guessing if it ended up being a draw, then they just wouldn't change the handicap for the next round.
Yeah, that's the only thing that kind of makes sense, All right. So that's so in this case, I do believe Shinminjun again. He won reasonably comfortably.
Yes. No, Seo Bongsoo had a fairly he had a fairly solid game for the most part, but yeah, when it got to when both players were in Byoyomi, Shin Min-jun, he managed to get an advantage in Yosei, and then I think in the end, yeah, I don't think anything. It wasn't a huge win in terms of points. No group start or anything like that, but Shin Min-jun just was able to slowly overcome Black's advantage, and then I think he ended up something like 12 points ahead. Right. I mean, like 6 points or something ahead on the board, or something like that.
Yeah, I think he won by 6 at the end. So I mean, this game got to Yosei, so that's kind of
they finished the game and they ended up counting.
Yeah. So that's Shin Min-jun's game when it ended up doing by 6 points. So yeah, that was a decent game for Seo Bongsoo. Now, before the series, Seo, he did say that he's confident at 3 stones, but he's not 100%, not so certain with 2 stones. So that's kind of like the human to versus AI margin. So the top pros can probably beat the top AI at 3 stones, but at 2 stones it's a bit hard. So maybe So that's game 2, and because Seo Bongsoo lost game 2, in game 3 he had to play in a 2-stone handicap versus Kang Dong-yoon.
Yes, that's right. Yes. So game 3, I think the first 2 games were played on 2 consecutive days.
Yeah.
I think game 3 was played. They had a 1-day break. I think there was a Jar League.
Right.
Maybe there was a Jar League round.
Yeah.
So there was 1-day break, and then round 3, which was against Kang Dong-yoon. And yes, so Seo Bongsoo was Black, and he had 2 stones.
Yeah.
And I remember watching this one live on Baduk TV, and I was, I used auto translate on the live chat comments.
Yep.
And I remember reading one comment said 2 stones of shame.
Right.
Like Seo Bongsoo's 2 stones of shame,
right.
Referencing referencing the fact that he's a pro and like a legend.
Yeah.
And yet, he has to give 2 stones to someone else.
Right.
Which I thought, was a bit unfair. It's a bit harsh, but that's the kind of comments that sometimes you see, regarding professional athletes and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, Seo Bongsoo is a legend, no matter what anyone says. So I don't really, have anything.
He's a famous legend.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's probably one of my favorite players. So I think even when he was in his 50s, he still made the semi-final for Samsung Cup, I do believe. It's semi-final. I think so that was, so he's quite very strong even into his 50s.
Yeah, and I mean he was nearly 40 when he won the In Cup.
You're right, yeah.
But yeah, so this one was against Kang Dong-yoon, and this one, it really looked like that Kang Dong-yoon actually made up a huge amount of the deficit very early on in the game.
Yeah.
But in the end, he may have misjudged just how far he was behind.
Yeah.
And played a little bit. I think he played a little bit sloppily on the left. Maybe he thought he had to take more risks than he actually needed to take. Although there have been some. So in the end, Kang Dong-yoon actually lost.
Yeah, Kang Dong-yoon lost.
He ended up resigning.
Yeah.
Again, I thought both sides played well here, given the circumstances. Kang Dong-yoon played quite well, considering he probably doesn't give 2 stones to, play 2-stone handicap games that much, and giving 2 stones to a 9-dan, is something else. And I thought he played admirably.
Yeah.
And Seo Bongsoo, he won, so can't fault him for that.
Yeah.
But there were some discussions. Now, there have been, discussions among fans, Korean Go fans,
right,
right, that perhaps Kang Dong-yoon didn't put in 100% here.
Right.
That perhaps, Kang Dong-yoon, he started, his opening was very strong.
Yeah.
He forced Seo Bongsoo, for instance, in the top right, he forced Seo Bongsoo to live quite small.
Yeah.
And people are suggesting that by the mid game, Kang Dong-yoon sort of let off a bit of the gas,
Okay.
so to speak, and sort of eased up on
Deliberately.
Yeah, that's what people are insinuating.
Right.
There has been the suggestion that maybe Kang Dong-yoon went a bit easy on Seo Bongsoo.
Right.
Out of respect, because all of these pros, they we're saying he's a legend. All of these pros also see Seo Bongsoo as a legend.
Yes.
Probably even more so. They probably revere him more than we do.
Yeah. Right.
And it's I guess it's like if you become an athlete, and when you're younger, before you become an athlete, you're inspired by people of that sport.
Yeah.
And you might end up having to face off against them when they're well past their prime, and you don't want to just kick their ass.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right? Because they were the ones who inspired you, and they sort of paved the way for you to become, people like Seo Bongsoo and Cho Hun-hyun. They paved the way for Korea to be seen as a powerhouse.
Yes.
In professional Go. So these guys are like playing their idols, and even though they're now much stronger than their idols, they respect them so much that they don't want to make them suffer.
No. But
I mean, it's understandable that they might feel bad about putting in 100%.
Yeah.
Against someone like Seo Bongsoo. So there might be a bit of weight to the idea that Kang Dong-yoon didn't try his absolute hardest, but again, this is just discussion on the internet. Nothing firsthand or even secondhand here.
Right.
It's
right. I mean, definitely plausible, right? I guess but it's also plausible that their professionalism would dictate that they would put in 100%, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I do think that if this was something like a Samsung Cup qualifier or just a regular domestic game, they would for sure be trying to win.
Yeah,
no problem with that. But this is an exhibition where they're giving a legend 2 stones.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
circumstances are different, I guess, and well, in the end, regardless of what the rumors are or the conspiracies are, Kang Dong-yoon lost.
Yep.
And that means that Seo Bongsoo, he won his game when he had 2 stones, which means that in the penultimate round, he would be returning to a 0 Komi, sort of no handicap stones game.
Yeah. Well, it's 0 Komi, but he's black, so it's like handicap. Versus Byung Sang-il, which is who's ranked as
number 3,
perennial number 3 in Korea.
Oh, he's been number 3 for so long. Over 18 months, he's been number 3. Not top 3.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Number 3, yes.
That's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
But Byung Sang-il, he's known for his. Well, I sort of see him as hyper aggressive or seriously aggressive to the point of over aggressiveness.
Yeah.
So I thought that this would actually be a bloodbath. I thought that Byung Sang-il, with his his hyper aggressiveness would eventually just kill something.
Yeah.
Of Seo Bongsoo's, but this actually was one of the closer games, I thought.
I thought he ended up with 12 points, winning by 12 points.
Oh no, I mean yes, definitely at the end, he did end up making some huge gains, but it was quite close for a long time.
Right.
Yes, no, it ended up being a double digit margin. But
Yeah.
it there was a glimmer of hope that Seo Bongsoo might have actually um,
It
you know
wasn't
gotten
all
out
one way
with
traffic.
maybe even a draw or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't all one way traffic.
Oh no, it definitely wasn't all one way traffic.
Right. Okay.
But I think there's no surprise that Bjorn ended up on top
Yeah.
in this game. But yeah, no, I expected that a massive group would die or something like that, and
Yeah.
Bjorn would win by like 40 points.
Yeah.
Um,
But
maybe again like another conspiracy theory. Maybe Bjorn opted against the hyper aggressive strategy.
right.
Um,
Doesn't want to
but
fight.
who knows?
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
mean,
Bjorn doesn't always play hyper aggressive. He
right.
can play,
He's a bit
so to
erratic.
speak, sensible Baduk. I mean,
Yeah.
he is number 3 in Korea
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it ended up going to account. Like they ended up playing out the whole game. So
Yeah. All right. So that's how it ended up. Okay. So Bjorn Sang-ho actually ended up winning by 12 points. So he's 12 points ahead on the board. And so what that means is, in the final game versus Park Jun-hwan, Seo Bongsoo goes back to 2 stones.
he
And
goes back to 2 stones, but at the very least, he never had to go to 3 stones.
no. So, obviously Seo held on versus Kang Dong-yoon at two stones. Can he do the same over here versus Park Jun-hwan?
And this one, unfortunately, this one was on the Tuesday, which is when I actually go to work.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to watch this all that closely, but I thought this one was going to be a very interesting game, similar to the Kang Dong-yoon game, because like Kang Dong-yoon, Park Jun-hwan is a very solid player.
Yeah.
He's not one of the attack like most players, top players in the world now are known for their attacking prowess.
Right.
Park Jun-hwan is definitely not one of those players. He's much more solid, and plays for thickness and influence.
Yeah.
Type of players.
Yeah.
So it was definitely going to be interesting to see how he was going to make up the deficit of
Right.
giving 2 stones.
Yeah.
Because basically, if was he going to just try and slowly, make up the points one by one, with his moves, or was something going to was a group of blacks going to have to die
Right.
for white to make up the points? And and if a group was going to die, it was probably, it's typically not, like I said, Park Chung-wan doesn't usually initiate the attacks.
Yep.
So,
and I mean, I do remember watching the game a little bit. Unfortunately, I also have to go to work, but I just want to point out this one moment in the game where I thought, this is where the old Seo is, he just played, as black has just played here, and when white played here, he played here, and it just jumps out. So like, this is the old Seo, like wild grass weed. He just finds all these sequences that just kind of works. But I do believe that at this point, according to AI, black is quite ahead. I think at the end, if Seo Bongsoo had played this correctly, this would have been an okay game. But I think I didn't read any commentary, but I thought the turning point of the game was when Park Jun-hwan managed to cleverly take the corner. So this corner
which
was
corner? The bottom left?
Bottom left corner. So you see here. So Park Jun-hwan played this, and then Hane on the inside, and he managed to take the corner. So I thought that was a turning point. Now it also ended up happening that this is on the right hand side here. If you look at this one, this would be a classic life and death problem, absolute classic. And I do believe that Park Jun-hwan managed to kill. So they were just fighting this code over here, and apparently this is a very bad code threat, because white actually just killed this group. Yeah, and this is the Tetsuji that kills his group. So it's a classic life and death problem. So I think maybe maybe Dan level players would have done this. But it's a beautiful Tetsuji played by Park Jun-hwan. So Park Jun-hwan, by killing this corner, and because Seo Bongsoo played this really bad code threat, which doesn't really, I guess it doesn't really work, I guess, because obviously it's hoping that White will Atari, but actually White can attach at this point and make another eye. So actually White's already alive, so that's why it's a very bad one. So White ended up just getting Sente and ended up killing this group. So, well, too bad for Seo, the legend.
So Park Jun-hwan actually won this game, and again there have been discussions online.
Right.
Despite the fact that Park Jun-hwan, won this game, people were suggesting that he also did not
play this bit.
Put in the strongest effort. Like he left it. Essentially, he left it very late.
Right.
To reverse the game.
Right.
People are saying, and he essentially he basically won because the opportunities presented themselves.
Right.
Rather than Park Jun-hwan, forcing the initiative. But that's also Park Jun-hwan's style.
Right.
But yeah, people were saying that Park Jun-hwan was, even for his style, he was playing, overly passively, given that he had given Black a 2-stone handicap.
Right.
And that, maybe out of respect for Seo Bongsoo, he didn't put in maximum effort. But again, that's just discussions online, and I do know that Park Jun-hwan has a huge amount of respect for Seo Bongsoo.
Right. So
it must have been hard to win a game against him in this fashion, but that's he does get more money.
A bit more, but
and of course he could have declined, just like Shinjinso did, to play, but I'm happy that he did play. It was really cool to see Seo Bongsoo play against some of the best players in Korea.
So the whole series, the 5-game series, ended up being Seo Bongsoo winning 1 game at 2-stone handicap, and he also lost a 2-stone game. So meaning that if this series had continued for longer, he would be under a 3-stone handicap. But that actually didn't happen. So and also obviously in future, when Seo Bongsoo plays in pro comps versus these other players, he would still not be under any kind of handicap. So unlike the Jubango era, where if you get downgraded, you get downgraded forever. And also, I do believe that Seo Bongsoo is ranked 123 in Korea at the beginning of the series.
123. That's actually quite high.
Right.
I'll just quickly. I'll try and quickly confirm that, because that's that's quite high. Because Yu Chang-hyuk is he's around about 100 or something like that.
Right.
Yu Chang-hyuk is 101.
Right.
Seo Bongsoo, I'm looking for him. He's 100. Okay. Seo Bongsoo was 123 last month. He's actually 141.
Okay, so it's dropped a bit further, but that's also quite interesting to me. Is that it does sound like to me that the absolute top pros are able to give maybe players ranked around the 120, 150 mark 2 stones sometimes, and win some of the games. Okay. So that's quite remarkable. Okay, so that's the Seo Bongsoo special. Hope we paid enough tribute to the legend, so that give you some color about the legend that is Seo Bongsoo.
Yep, I hope Baduk TV does more specials. I love these specials.
Right, yeah.
They're always good. I don't know how they find the time for them, because these pros, Korea has the busiest schedule of any region. Especially the top pros, but they seem to make time.
Yeah.
So yeah, really, really appreciative of that.
Yeah. So hope to see some other interesting stuff happening in the future. So Gaza, let's move on to the second and last topic of the day, which is a big game that's happened today. And
Yes, we're going over to Japan for Meijin Game 3.
Meijin Game 3. And this is
So,
between...
yeah, Meijin, one of the biggest titles in Japan.
Yep.
In terms of prize money, it's only second to the Kisei.
Yep.
The current Meijin, everyone knows him, Iyama Yuta. He's being challenged by the former Meijin, Shibano Toramaru.
Yep.
The first two games have been split, one apiece.
Yep.
And this is game 3, and this happened. We're recording this on Friday. This happened on Thursday and Friday, so it just finished.
Yeah, it just finished.
And we should give the result now, or should we go through the game?
Let's go through the game, because it's not.
But people watching this podcast may already know the result, which is fine. So.
Yeah, which is fine. It's too bad.
Yeah,
so,
but we'll go through the game. I thought this was a good game.
No, okay, yeah. Shibano is black in this one. Yamaguchi is white. So, yep. Okay, you were saying.
I thought this was a good game.
Yeah.
I thought this was a high quality game by both players, and with some very interesting moments.
Yeah.
If you recall, if you saw our podcast or had gone through game 2, you remember that it got quite intense very early on with Iyama getting a massive corner early in the game, but Shibano ended up prevailing in the end. So quite interesting. This one had a fairly slow start, I would say. There was a little bit of fighting in the top left, but not much.
Yeah.
And then the rest was more just sort of maneuvering around the corners, getting a little bit of influence here and there. And then it sort of really took off all of day 2, I think.
No, I can't remember exactly when did they won.
So the sealed move was move 83.
Right, this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was there wasn't really you couldn't really tell white and black apart. Well, the AI certainly couldn't.
Yeah.
Over day 1.
Yeah.
But then and like I said, it was relatively peaceful. And then day 2 sort of changed tack quite a bit. It turned into a territory versus influence battle all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So if you look at what's happened just in the first few moves of day 2, so like I said, move 83 was the sealed move.
This is
And then all of a sudden, black, sacrifices. If black does a Hane at move 91, and all of a sudden he's offering to sacrifice those 3 stones at the top.
Yeah.
Now white accepts this sacrifice, as you can see.
Yeah.
And if you got just stop at move 98. So white accepts this sacrifice, which gives white a huge top area.
Yeah.
And black, black has a little bit in each of the corners.
Yeah.
And he's got a huge amount of influence in the center.
Yeah.
But white's got a ton of solid territory.
Yeah.
So it's essentially a territory versus influence showdown.
Yeah.
Which is always great, like a very uneven sort of battle. It's always very difficult to determine who's ahead.
Yeah.
I think, I just want to say this is a great game to if you follow this in your own time, I highly recommend that you do it without AI.
Yeah.
It's definitely one game that I would suggest at first playthrough, do it without AI, because it's very interesting.
Yeah.
And so black pressures both of white's weak groups. So white had a weak group on the left.
Yep.
And the bottom right is also weak.
Yeah.
So what black did is pressure both of those, force the left group to live very small.
Yeah.
And the white group and the bottom right group is cut off now.
Yeah.
from the rest of the white stones, and it's still not fully alive. It doesn't have two eyes just yet.
Yeah.
Now, you can see here, if you go back to move 112.
Yep.
So you can see here that black. So you look at the middle now, and most of the boundary is black stones.
Yeah.
But there still seem to be some holes here.
Yeah.
To poke through,
Yeah.
and this next move 113 by Shibano, I thought was very interesting. Because there's still a lot of play. Well, there still seems to be a lot that white can do on the right.
Yeah.
To try and break through into the center.
Yeah.
Shibano is basically saying, this seems to be a very I wouldn't say arrogant move, but very confident play here. This move 113. Shibano seems to basically be saying, I think I've got enough points.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about your maneuvers on the right. I've got enough points. bring the fight, and which I think is a very confident thing to say when your opponent is Iyama Yuta.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen what he's capable of doing.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, once that move was played, I thought, if Shibano stuffs this up, he's gonna kick himself for playing that move.
Yeah.
But if he pulls it off, full credit to him.
Yeah. You usually, what I was gonna say, usually if my opponent plays something like this, I will start feeling very nervous because as you say, that's what they're telling me is they think they have enough. Not only this move also tells me that Shibano thinks he's got enough.
Because that's just basically a Yosei move.
Yeah, just taking points. I'm gonna take the Yosei.
And then the follow up as well. He just captures the stone.
Yeah, so he says, I have enough. You can try to break through the middle. And for a long time, couldn't really AI. Not even AI could tell who's ahead. But I think by this time, Iyama realizes that he's behind because he's just creating another weak group in the middle. Obviously, there's an obvious Atari here, or just extend, and it's not clear exactly if this white group can connect back. But obviously white can also cut off this black one stone. But anyway, you can tell by looking at this kind of thing that Iyama thinks he's behind. So he tries to break through some more, just more Yosei here, and Shibano again took some points. But I think AI was suggesting that Shibano should play here and just capture. Iyama Yuta rather should play here, threaten these three stones, and then capture this, and actually capture and ignore this Atari. But I'm not really sure. But by this time, it's all Yosei, and I do remember Iyama just looking a bit, how do you say, frustrated a little bit just from the video, and it's very interesting when he resigned as well. So this is when so Shibano again took some more points, and this is the point at which Iyama resigned.
Yes.
Now, I did not do a careful count myself. I just used the AI count, but apparently Iyama is only behind by 1.5 points to 2.5 points, somewhere around there. So, and
the thing is, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why White's behind in this. From my Q level counting, it's hard to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for me, I would have thought that. I wouldn't know who was leading, to be honest.
Yeah, so it was very, very close, and now if I recall correctly, the AI still gives White at least 10% chance of winnings, and as I mentioned, the margin is only 1.5 points to 2.5 points, and as you can see, there's actually still a lot of Yoseis to be played. So I would imagine that in Yama's position that he think may potentially Shibano could make a tiny mistake somewhere and he could make up the margin.
I think that the AI, there are some cases in Yossa, and when it gets to the end game, where the AI may be a little bit misleading.
Right.
In that sometimes when it says 10%,
Yeah.
It's looking at some absolutely bizarre,
Right.
two-step code that it's just manufactured out of thin air or something like that.
Yeah.
I have seen games where it looks like it really is just Yosei moves and the AI says 10%.
Yeah.
Right. This could be one of those occasions. I'd have to defer to Iyama's judgment here when he resigns in a game like this. I would have preferred, since I think it may have only been like 2.5 points at most.
Yeah.
I would have preferred that they went to the count, but they're the professionals. They understand this game far better than we ever will. And I have to say that if someone like Iyama thinks that there's no hope in this game, I'd have to. I'd trust his judgment, but so I would have to say that the AI probably is when it. My AI also said that white was still at 10%. It's probably, it's probably, again, it's just an overestimating white's real chances in a human game. I would have to say. Right. But again, like for a Q level player like me, it's hard for me to count. Like at this point of the game, it's hard for me to count.
Yeah. But I do imagine that if you did count, you see that it's only a couple of points in it. I mean, there's still. I
can assure you, if I was playing a player of similar ability, at this position, it's anyone's game.
Yeah. So maybe Yama just counted quite accurately. He realizes that Yosei is actually quite simple. Not many things in it, so he just counted.
I'm sure. I don't think that there's any sort of any sort of scam, like any sort of shock here. I'm sure that this game is over. But I have to say I'm really impressed by Shibano's play here. Like just his just the confidence in some of his moves. Like I said there, that third line extension at move 113 and those Yosei moves in the top left that you pointed out as well. Just because the AI says that those moves, in terms of the percentage, the AI doesn't think those are the best moves, but it for a human, I mean, it gives off a sense of confidence, like I'm superior, I'm going to win this game. There's nothing you can do about it. I can play moves like this.
I do remember both players were spending quite a bit of time just on whether to extend or Hane or whatever, and Shibano ended up Hane, meaning that he's gonna just sacrifice, and which was probably the right thing to do, probably the winning strategy there.
Like for me, it's really hard to fathom just giving up those stones, even though, like, because he has to read out the influence that he's going to get, and be confident in himself that white can't, like for instance, the bottom right can't just break through and destroy everything, because black's well behind in solid territory at this point of the game.
And also this move, which is like it's like putting pressure on this, and maybe making white having to play on both sides to break this little bit, like play here and play here. So like it's just very it's the kind of intangible stuff that
I think,
that maybe
I want to just check, because there was a point in the game where Iyama actually spent an hour and 20 minutes on a single move, and I think it was that
might have been this one, the Kema here. I can't remember which one it was. I think he was.
I will try to find it, but
Yeah.
it was okay. No. It was definitely after move 101.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember there was Iyama.
Yeah, it was definitely after move 101. That multi-purpose move that
Yeah.
that attacks the right hand side and the bottom right.
Yeah.
Iyama spent an hour, I believe, an hour and 20 minutes, and that is not including the lunch break.
Right.
So there was a lunch break during that period of time. So it was actually after Shibano made that move 101.
Yeah.
The next move was played 2 hours and 20 moves later.
Right. I do believe Iyama spent a lot of time before he played his Hane. Yeah.
Yes,
so,
a lot of time. And that Hane was a good move, but
Right.
it just shows you that Shibano's move, not only was it a strong move, but it also made his opponent spend a lot of thinking time, and that could have had an effect on things in the end.
Yeah.
As well, because although they both get 8 hours, if you're spending an hour and 20 minutes on a single move, that cuts into your time.
Yeah. So overall, a very, very interesting game, but Shibano won out.
And especially like following the game to Meijin as well. This is turning out to be a cracker of a match.
Yes.
If the games continue to be of this quality, this is going to be a really excellent Meijin.
Yeah. It's definitely not the 4-0 Honimbo kind of thing.
No.
So now Shibano's going 2-1 up. Of course, this is a best of 7, so Shibano still have to win at least 2 games, play at least 2 games to see if he can win the Meijin. But could this be the beginning of the end for Yuta? I'm not sure. But
I don't think so.
Right.
He's still got the Honinbo, he's still got the Urza, he's still got the Gosei.
Right.
I'm not gonna write Iyama off. No.
No. But
and I'm not even writing him off in this Meijin. It's only 2-1, so and if you remember last year, Shibano actually challenged Iyama for the Honinbo, and he was up 3-1 after 4 games.
Correct.
And Iyama came back and won it. So
and Iyama also won a Jar League game in between as well. Right after he lost to Shibano, I think the next day he played in a Jar League game and won.
So, against someone like Sheke or something like that.
It's either Sheke or Ding Hao, one of them.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's just crazy. But I'm already looking forward to Game 4.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, again, the one unfortunate thing is that Game 7 will clash with the Samsung Cup. I still don't think Japan have named their team for the Samsung Cup, but basically, if Iyama wins Game 4, I think that we can say with certainty that neither of them will be playing in the Samsung Cup.
Yeah. Chances are I don't expect them to play in that Samsung Cup anyway. So
I agree with that, and that's unfortunate, but
can't change it.
Can't change it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the calendar for the next week.
Yeah. Well, let's also have a look at a couple of things have happened this week that we will discuss in next week's podcast.
Right. Yep.
So the main thing is the CCTV Cup.
Yeah, that's one of the major competitions in China.
Yes. Yeah. We will definitely be covering that next week, so don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Some more games in the Korean Myeongin happened.
Right.
Yep. Including, they were all big games, but we will cover. There'll be more Myeongin games next week, and we'll cover them all in the next week's podcast.
Yep.
And there was also the Korean Rookie King final that happened today, actually.
Yep.
We'll cover that in next week's podcast as well. That was just a single game.
Yep.
And then what's happening next week?
What's happening next week? Let's look at the calendar.
Yes.
So over the weekend, we have the Korean Women's League playoff, 1 round of Jar League.
Yep.
And the Monday, we have Myeonjin 5th round, which I think is just the losers bracket. Wonsongjin versus Shinminjin.
Yep.
And
that's an elimination game.
Yep.
And then there'll be the final to determine the second grand finalist.
Yeah, which I think one of the Meijin's losers brackets final will be Park Jun-hwan, I believe, playing the winner of Shin Min-jun and Won Sung-jin.
Yes.
Now, I'm not quite sure if this is going to happen, but the 36 Tian Yuan best of 3 between Gu Zhihao and Meijin Game 1 was meant to happen. So let's see if it actually goes ahead. I've heard that it's...
That's a big game. That's a very big game.
Yeah, of course. Tian Yuan is the Chinese word for Tengen. I maybe it's not going to happen. But let's see. It's still on the calendar.
Let's hope so. Yeah.
Let's hope it happens. Is there anything else? Like this is a Japan Rookie King final. So Otake
Yep.
Yu
So this is the Japanese Rookie King final.
Yep.
Otake Yu. If you've watched previous podcasts, you will know that name.
His public enemy number 1.
Huge favorite in my opinion against Sakayuki.
Yep.
But unlike the Korean Rookie King, the Japan Rookie King is best of 3.
Yeah.
So
right. So we'll see. And
then what's the okay? So the dark green there.
Yeah.
That's the championship of the Korean Women's League.
Yeah. Featuring.
I believe it will be featuring Cho Shong-ah. I think Cho Shong-ah's team is guaranteed to be in the final. Let me just confirm.
Notably, as we've talked about this before, Choi Jong does not feature at all in this year's Women's League playoffs.
Yeah, so, huge shock. I think people just assumed it would be a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
Yes, Cho Shong-ah's team is guaranteed to be in the final. Yes. We don't know which other team will be in the final because the games haven't finished yet. But yes, we'll be talking about that for sure in next week's podcast. It's going to be it may be a slightly busy podcast next week because we got the JAR League rounds.
Yep.
But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And also there seems to be a women's competition in Korea called Dr. G.
It's not quite new. It's actually the Korean Women's Strongest. It just has a new sponsor.
Right. It's the G there, Gaza, Dr. Gaza.
It's funny because at work, where I work, people call me Dr. G because the CEO of the company was also called had the same first name as me.
Right.
So they didn't want to call me. My name's Gareth. They didn't want to call me Gareth because the CEO was also called Gareth. Yeah. So they wanted a new name for me and they called me Dr. G.
The next, I really want to see you on screen with the sword and the shield in that Fire Emblem cosplay. So
I don't do cosplay.
Right. Okay. Well,
but I do have so I do want to have a small mention here. So the Korea Women's Strongest is like the Korea Strongest, the open one, in that it's a league.
Right.
And the interesting thing is last year, one of the surprise entrants in the league, surprise qualifiers in the league was Jong Yoo-jin. None other than Jong Yoo-jin, who's now gone on to be a
title holder,
champion, a title holder.
Yeah.
This year there was a surprise qualifier, Ko Miso.
She's a new pro.
She's so new. I think we've actually, in an earlier podcast, talked about how she qualified to become pro.
Yeah.
So she's so new. I don't think she was even a pro when we first started this podcast.
Right. So.
And now she's in the Korea Women's Strongest. Maybe next year she'll win a title.
Well, you never know. So we're gonna look forward to that.
We'll if we have time next week, we can discuss the participants.
Yep.
In that, otherwise we can just do it in a later podcast because, like I said, it's a league, so we'll go over. It will be happening for many weeks.
Yeah, 100%.
But yes, definitely. Yeah, sorry that we weren't able to cover all of this week's stuff. In this podcast, but we did cover the Meijin and the Seo Bongsoo specials. We will be covering the other things in next week's podcast, and we're definitely keen to talk about the CCTV Cup.
Yep.
And there were also some other achievements by Fujisawa Rina. this week.
Right.
Which maybe we should just quickly mention now. She so as we know, she didn't quite qualify for the Honinbo League.
No.
But she did qualify for the Judan tournament.
Yes. Very nice.
On Monday, she played a Judan final qualifier against Anzai Nobuaki and thoroughly, clinical, had a clinical victory there.
Yeah.
Very impressive game. And this is her second year in a row qualifying for the Judan tournament.
Yep, she's making a habit of it.
Yes. It was almost expected her to qualify for it, to be honest. Because she was in it last year, she only needed to win one game to re-qualify, which she did.
Yeah.
And on Thursday, she actually won a Meijin prelim.
Right.
Which
very nice.
No, I should note that doesn't actually qualify her for the Meijin tournament because it's an early prelim. She still has to win 4 more games to make the Meijin League.
Yeah.
But she did win a game against, I think it was Hiroshi Yuichi, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, top stuff.
Yeah.
And
it's
so that setback in the Honinbo is. Yeah, she hasn't, she's brushed that off easily, and who knows how far she can advance? Maybe she can, make some waves Ruinawe style.
Yeah, hope to see the first women player in a major league in Japan. It's one of the top 3. Yeah.
Yes, and I don't think there's anyone more deserving than Fujisawa Rina.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah, her granddad would be proud. All right. So, thanks for another great episode, Gaza. We'll let you go early so you can get some sleep.
Oh, thank you very much.
And we'll see you next week, Gaza.
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.